Paula. So we'll go to Kim now, who's going to also speak. And then I just wanted to remind everyone that afterwards we'll be able to open this up for discussion. I'm sure there's not a lot you can cover just in these short presentations. So any further questions, we'll be continuing to discuss them after Kim. So go ahead, Kim.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate being invited to speak on this panel. It's such a critical moment for us right now, and it's so inspiring to see what has happened in Colombia and for us to hopefully learn a lot from their struggles. We do find ourselves in a significantly different circumstance here where we do not have mass struggles happening on the streets at this very moment. However, we are coming off of, a 2-year protest movement for Black Lives Matter, where we had roughly 23 million people of all races on the streets fighting together to demand, that we end some of the insane racist police violence that we experience here in the United States. I think this is a backdrop for us, a very big backdrop for us, right? Lives have changed, ideas have changed. Millions of teenagers have been in the streets protesting for the first time in about 5 decades. That's something we really can't underestimate the importance of. But now we find ourselves in this really confounding, disturbing, dangerous situation in the United States because we have well, I'm in Madison. I'm in Wisconsin right now for people who are who I don't know. Wisconsin has now no abortion rights. We have no legal abortion rights. Our state was founded in 1848, and they made abortion illegal in 1849, speaking to Felice's earlier comments about the need for the state to control our reproductive capacities and our fertility. In all those 170 some years, no politician has taken it upon themselves or party has taken it upon themselves to overturn that legislation, which means that it is a felony and you can get 6 years in jail for providing an abortion to a person who can become pregnant here in Wisconsin, 6 years in jail and $10,000. What happened on the 24th of June was that Planned Parenthood stopped providing abortions. All abortions on June 24th stopped happening in Wisconsin, leaving 3 million, half of Wisconsin's population, 3 million people have just lost their bodily autonomy. And right now we have to figure out how it is we're going to go about fighting to win it back. After Texas passed its legislation and put a $10,000 bounty on the heads of anybody who is providing abortions or supporting people in acquiring abortions, I got together with some friends and said, I think we should maybe have a speak out on campus about what's happening. I don't see, organizations that I would anticipate calling such a thing. And so I waited and waited and waited. Finally, we made some leaflets. We handed them out. Maybe 1,000 quarter sheets to students on campus and teachers on campus and workers on campus. And a couple of weeks later, we ended up with something like, 120 people at this speak out. And I don't know for everyone on this call if a speak out is something that's familiar. I just think they're an incredible experience that we can't ignore or downplay. The idea is that you invite people to come and share in a public space, could be outside, could be in a library, their personal stories. So it may be their abortion story, or it may be another reproductive rights story, or it might be someone who's there in solidarity. So I will share with you a little bit about my own story so that you can get sort of the idea for how intense and politicizing these experiences are. I had my abortion in 1986 in Great Britain. I was a student there. I was married to someone who had a drug problem. I had experienced a lot of rape in my life and was very uncomfortable with having any kind of sexual relations. So I would occasionally get quite drunk so that I could could do that. And unfortunately, as a student there, we became drunk and had sexual relations, and I put the condom on wrong and fixed that, and then essentially impregnated myself. Having one of those periods that hardly ever comes 2-3 times a year, didn't ever notice that my period hadn't come, like so many people in the United States. And several months went by, and I was becoming sicker and sicker, had no idea why. Turns out that I was, in fact, pregnant. I had $0, and I was in a country that had national health care, and people imagine people there have access to abortion readily. It is not true. You have to have 2 doctors sign off on your right to get an abortion in England. I could not find 2 doctors. They have to decide that your mental health or your physical health are going to suffer severely if you don't receive an abortion. They decided that I did not meet those categories. And so I ended up weeks and weeks and weeks into this pregnancy. And it did appear that I was going to be forced to carry this pregnancy to term. Unfortunately, I had become quite suicidal. And we ended up in a situation where happily, I had joined a socialist organization. I was a student studying labor history and philosophy and Marxism, and I joined a student group. And they came together with the Palestinian Women's Organization, and they came up with $2,000 so that I could have a private abortion in a private facility, because in the same impoverished communities in England where they don't have access to abortion, they have very excellent private facilities for abortion. So this is where I had my abortion. This was a hugely politicizing experience. People's abortions are hugely politicizing experiences, whether it's the 50-year-old person who's come to the demonstration, never told anyone they had an abortion, and have now shared with 250 people they don't know that they had an abortion. Or it's the person who is we recently had a mother whose child was a trans teenager. This trans teenager was afraid that they would be raped and become pregnant and not be able to terminate their pregnancy, and that they would then become suicidal. This mother, basically said they were in this struggle for the rest of their lives with us because they needed to protect their child. So these kinds of ideas, that when you come together and you share your story, you form a connection, you form a bond with other people that you are having these conversations with, and you can start to begin to believe that actually it isn't the politicians who are going to fix your world, it's that you together are going to organize to fix your world. And these speakouts, now there have been 5 of them in Madison, have brought more and more people together. We share our life's experiences. And as I said, it isn't just people who have had abortions. There are many people who have been sexually assaulted who speak. There are many people who are LGBTQAI plus who come to speak. There are many people who come, straight white men who come to offer their solidarity. We end up with a very, very wonderful collection of people coming together, figuring out how we can move forward. And I think the critical piece to this is that now we have seen that, unfortunately, now in NARAL and Planned Parenthood and unfortunately the Democratic Party have not called people into the streets. They have not called for mass demonstrations, and instead are banging the same drum that they've been banging for a very long time, that's taken us from where we were to where we are today. The way we got parental consent, the way that we got 24-hour waiting periods, the way that we got extremely rare access to facilities, extremely expensive abortions, the way we came to need ultrasounds, and all of the other things that are required for us to get access to abortion, and now ultimately having lost abortion. These organizations did not call people onto the streets. And the reason they didn't do this is because there is a belief, unfortunately, that the way we are, as Felice explained, going to win or re-win abortion rights has to do with keeping certain politicians in power. And if that had been the case, then needless to say, right, we have a Democratic president, House, Senate, in Wisconsin, governor, and the mayor of my city as well, all Democratic politicians. And where do we sit right now? We sit with absolutely no access to abortion rights here in Madison and here in Wisconsin and many states across the country. I really encourage people to take it very seriously that you can start your own group in your own community. The group I work with is the Madison Abortion and Reproductive Rights Coalition for Healthcare. And the reason we talk about not just abortion, but reproductive rights is that we're very clear that Clarence Thomas has an intention of ending access to contraception and ending access to legal gay marriage, to interracial marriage, to queer sex, to affirmative action. There are many, 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 many attacks that are coming down the road here, and that we need to be building groups of people who are on the ground who recognize that, you know, the people who are going to come to save us are we ourselves. We are going to come together to save us. Nobody else is going to come and save us. And when you're speaking at rallies and speaking at speakouts and having conversations with people, you know that there are these three roads. There's the road to the sort of the self-help road of how can we, you know, get people across the border? How can we get people access to the pills and so on and so forth? Then there's the road to how do we get such and such a Democrat elected? And then there's the third road, which is how do we get larger and larger numbers of people confidently together on the streets who recognize that we are actually going to need to move in the direction of organizing civil disobedience and making the United States ungovernable. And that's what we were just learning about how difficult that is, how complex and how important and how essential that is. So we have a long way from here to mass strikes. But I really look forward to speaking to anybody who would like to get a speak out off the ground in their community, figure out how to start forming a group after a speak out, learn about some of the things that we have bumped up against and gotten around and gotten through and gotten over. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your presentation today.